Howdy of you delicious people. Utopia, episode 6. Man, uh, this one honestly is like, we do have some secrets coming out of this episode, but we really have it also just feel like a filler episode. Um, man, just kind of so thinking of like what I'm gonna be like still having to go through after this show is over. Like, man, more of this. All right, great. Um, because I've been through this before, but still, it's just uh, really this time around. It's just like, man. This one is kind of like a bummer of an episode, and so hopefully we get more out of the other episodes when we kind of finish this up. So what do we did get out of this? What is the payouts of this episode? Well, there are some secrets revealed to certain characters, or people are to finally figure things out. Arby is to have a certain secret be revealed to him. We, of course, have uh, Becky and Ian escalating the relationship. A lot of time is being filled with them just thumbing through Utopia pages, for the most point. Uh, Trying to figure out more of the clues because they've been already doing that through other episodes, but like we're going further into the pages. Sure, to waste time. Michael seems to be much more like he was naive before, but now he's starting to come up and figure things out even quicker than they, who are the bad guys, could have expected, I guess. And so, really, we have kind of the whole moral of the story of this episode is people are tricky, and you can't exactly like you can manipulate and think you can control a person, but eventually it's easier just to kill them off than to try and figure out a way to wrangle them in, I guess, is where they always go into this solution of things. Um, Man, the stuff that I'm gonna have to go into to just kind of finish this up, but also go into another series of things. Just Utopia. Utopia. Anyways, um, yeah. So let's go into it. Let's just go into double 5 times bullet time, whatever. We're kind of at the end of my day also, so this is like a longer day than expected for me. Just because for some reason it's just taking longer and longer to get content out. So without a doubt, let's go into this double 5 time tutorial. Let's just go into this thing called spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time you get to spoil this episode. So, kind of picking up where we left off from the last episode, we have Alice who's coming into the mansion, and now she's to be comforted because her mother is dead. Sadly for Alice. And so we have at one point where Alice in this episode is wanting to go back home as she's kind of like playing around with these matches weirdly. And Jessica is like, well, no, you're never going home. Like, here's where your home is, and you're never going to leave. And because this girl is going to get killed anyways if she goes anywhere. So we just have Jessica who is to kind of slap around a little bit of Alice and then cuffs her to this bed. And eventually later Grant is to kind of give Alice this kind of like nice little sweet moment where the second part of that paper was him mentioning to her that she's cool, and that also, like, he's kind of giving her the Utopia book for her to kind of thumb through for whatever reason. So now that I kind of got that out of the way, because it seems like Alice is her own little story, where Alice is also to ask Grant to cut her braid, so that way Jessica won't grab her by the braid anymore and slap her around. Be like the girl from Airplane, where uh, like the girl's losing her cool on the airplane, and so they decide like one person is kind of like jostle her into rationality, where he's like slapping her, and so all of a sudden like we have another person that comes after that person is like, well, hey, let me try, and just slaps the crap out of her and like it's not working, and so all of a sudden you start to see a line of all these other people that are like, one's a boxer, one's a this, one's a that, and they're just trying to like see if they can like smack the sanity back into this person. It's kind of like that, but it's that's a joke, where this is like Alice just wants to go home and she can't go home. She's basically, she's now down the rabbit hole, so there's nowhere else to go but down. So Alice, metaphor. Anyways, pushing on. So we have these guys go and thumb through Utopia again. We have Wilson, who is mainly doing the hard work, where everybody, he's doing the heavy lifting, where everybody else is just like, yeah, like, how can we just, like, we're sick of looking at these pages. How about we go and F? Ian, Becky, you want to go and F? Yeah, that's what you're going to do in this episode. So really, we have both Ian and Becky, all they give a about is deals. And so we have Becky, who has this kind of weird thing, I guess, this weird design on her neck, which I want to say design because, like, she says that, like, deals is weird kind of thing. So, like, is that a tattoo of deals? Like, like, I don't think that illness is carving that kind of tattoo out of her. That would seem weird. But so we go on and we have Becky, who just bangs it out with Ian, and then they continue to just bang it out through the rest of this episode. Because when really looking at it, Ian like doesn't have to be home anytime soon because he has no home to go back to. So might as well just keep on effing it out until Becky or Ian probably croaks, right? Might as well, because the world's technically going to end. They might as well just get this time out. And so Wilson had come up with another clue, like, oh, he's cracked the case, and so Wilson is to barge in with both Becky and Ian banging it out, and so he's like, well, hey guys, I figured out another clue, and so Wilson is kind of jealous about Ian and Becky banging it out, so. Because Wilson isn't going to have his Becky. Like, if anything, like Samantha might have been like a potential like wham bam thank you ma'am moment, but like somebody put a bullet hole in her, so there goes that. Like maybe like Wilson would have gotten like a sympathy F if anything, like, you know, like, hey, you know the same comic book I do. Oh yeah, banging it out. Anyways, pushing it on. So Wilson is to go and mention that since he has, since he is to voluntarily restrain himself from sex behavior, we go on and have Wilson figure out this llama clue, because evidently Wilson is to put together that there is to be one symbol that is to be the flag symbol of Peru, and that there is to be a bat symbol, and there is to be kind of Mr. Rabbit. And so Wilson puts it all together that this, of course, is uh, the disease or the flu that, of course, is coming from Peru, and they keep going on about that Dr. Mike is Mr. Rabbit. But then someone else is going on and saying, like, well, no, what if Mr. Rabbit is actually writing Mr. Mike or Dr. Mike, and so maybe Mr. Rabbit is using Mike as a way to kill people. Sounds like a very good assumption. So we have Dr. Mike going on, and he, of course, is to make it to Charlotte's house, which I guess in this episode we actually find out is Lily, because I didn't remember what the other girl's name is because they never said it, and all they say in IMDb is that this girl is playing Charlotte and that she's not playing Lily, but I guess she's playing Lily now. So technically being Charlotte. Whatever. Anyways, so we have, of course, Charlotte leaving from that, because I know I'm kind of fast-tracking a little bit too quickly here. Charlotte and Dale are leaving their quarantined area. Michael is with hazmat equipment, and I guess they're just quickly taking this all off, because I guess they've transitioned all the patients to wildly be cured all at the same time? Question mark? Was there only one kid? Because I'm assuming there was. Seems awful fast. So Dale and Charlotte are going on, and Charlotte's like, well, like, force the FDA to release this vaccine, and so on. And so Dale is pushing Charlotte to go back in the car, and so Dale is telling Charlotte, it's like, well, hey, like, you're the face of this vaccine, you're not the voice of it. Like, shut up and get in the car. Kind of thing. It's like, because, like, yeah, this girl should not be, like, so vocal about all this, because it seems like she's continuing to grab even more of her 15 minutes of fame, and it's getting annoying to Dale. And, like, honestly, it's getting annoying to me that this girl is just desperately clinging on to, like, man, I want to be so famous out of this. Like, what, so you can get a Twitter following, or maybe you're gonna have a YouTube channel at some point? I'm the girl that survived the flu. Because, you know what? There's some not so savory people in the world that, of course, are to really just carry a channel because they're some kind of, like, illness survivor. And I don't like that at all. I also just don't like the people that are to have, like, some kind of real gimmick on their channels either. But I get it. Like, I get that, like, surviving something or being incarcerated for something, and that's your gimmick or whatever. Like, I get that you can kind of cherish those moments that you were to be free from whatever, either it's illness um, or it's just being incarcerated and whatever, and you want to celebrate your freedom, and maybe you talking about prison is your therapeutic release, or you talking about you conquering your illness is a therapeutic release of things. But, like, I don't know, there's sometimes where some people take that a little too far, and that's when I start to get, like, man, this person has how many episodes of them talking about this still? How many of these things do they just have to really just gimmick their way through this now? It kind of seems awful for me to say that, but still, um, it's a certain way that they approach it. It's not some charity thing to raise money. It's like no, it's like them still dealing with this thing and making a YouTube thing out of possibly sympathy or something like that, which I don't like. Being honest, so going on, we of course have Charlotte and Dale making their way home, and that's when Michael is to arrive to go on and talk and say, like, well, hey, like, I want to purposely, like, Dr. Michael is saying, I want to purposely go through and watch Charlotte's recovery, like, coming in here and checking in on her and so on and so forth, just to make sure that she's better. It's like, hey, man, it seems like she's cured, so what is the point of doing this now? Like, Dale is kind of getting annoyed with the fact that it's like, hey, we cured it. There's not much more anything of that. So we go on here and we of course have Dale that's all of a sudden asking Charlotte because Dale is going and taking a call. Dr. Michael's asking Charlotte about like, well, hey, how long have you guys been in this house for? And she says about a year and change. And he's like, all right. So he's like, hey, can you tell me where the bathroom is? And she doesn't even know where the bathroom is. And so Mike's like, this seems suspicious. So all of a sudden, Mike goes to the bathroom to see that towels have tags on them. And so he's like, wow, something seems really fishy about this. So Mike starts opening up cupboards, realizing they're all empty. He's opening up a refrigerator that has no food in it. And all of a sudden Dale's like, hey, like, do you see anything? Did you find anything that you're looking for? And Mike is just like, well, I would just love a glass water by a refrigerator. So Dale ends up giving Mike a glass water, and so Mike is now asking, it's like, well, Dale, can you tell me anything that, like, of what you do for your job? And so Dale is going, it's like, well, my job is nothing. It doesn't have any purpose. And all of a sudden Charlotte's like, like, what did you do today to earn your place in this crowded world? What is the purpose of what you're doing, Dale? Sacrificing people. That's what you do. That's what you do for a job. So, all of a sudden, we have Mr. Christie on the line, and so Dale's like, okay, I have to leave. Or Mike is saying that I have to leave because it seems that Mr. Christie has an appointment for me. And then all of a sudden, once Michael gets back home and he's like driving 24 hours straight to get to Mr. Christie, all of a sudden the appointment that he had was canceled. Like, there's something convenient about that also. So, because Dale was on the phone talking to Mr. Christie, mentioning how, like, Mike is starting to snoop around, and that Christie had killed the wrong kid, that Charlotte was a good girl, but Lily is kind of getting out of control. And so Christie's like, well, we're going to have a handle on it. So what the really handle of it all really is that Dale all of a sudden is to slap a sticker on this wall, and then he's going off to get hit by some vehicle somewhere to be killed. And so all of a sudden Michael is to make his way home, and so, and I know I'll cover the Christie stuff, and I'll cover a lot of the other stuff also from this episode. I just want to go and deal with this whole one thing. So that we kind of, that's the more challenging, difficult part here. So all of a sudden we have Michael that's like in my head, I'm like, dude, I just talked to this guy like the night before, and it didn't seem like he had any real like thoughts or feelings or whatever, but I guess you don't know a guy. So all of a sudden, Michael is to go on and find out that Dale has passed away, and like, man, it's kind of quick that like they're to find out about this guy passing away. I guess it's convenient for this show, right? Weirdly. So they're saying, of course, that Dale is to pass away by being hit by this car, and they're immediately calling it a suicidal death. None about that seemed like very like suicidal. It just seems like he walked and a car ran him over out of nowhere, but it's whatever, right? So we go on and we have Mike, who's just kind of a little sus about the whole Dale situation. And so now Mike is starting to look into Dale's life. And we have Thomas, who is working on that because Mr. Christie is telling Thomas, it's like, hey, we need to have this guy have a whole entire life. Like in 1 hour, we need him to have a whole like we need to know like who was the very first girl that he ever slept with, and 2 hours from now we need to know like what song he came after he came. What song did they play after? So like every like basically like hey, concentrate on the big details first, but then after that go in this in a very short amount of time and get like the even deeper details. So Thomas is going on with these minions, and so we have, of course, Thomas going on and like having them try to figure out what they can make a theme out of this guy dying for. So the theme of it is that I guess Dale was jealous that Michael was to not only cure the flu but cure his daughter, and so that's what drove him into murdering himself. So we go on, and now like all of these papers, all of these documents are to be like kind of chucked onto the internet, and so now Mike is looking into them, and he's calling one of the guys that is to, of course, like have done this paper, and so Mike calls this guy, and so this guy answers the phone, and so we go on and we have this guy mentioning that that of course Dale was to kind of think about this old classmate of his curing uh, curing the flu and curing his daughter, and that like he just can't like he can't live up um, to that kind of thing. That what can he do? Kind of so we go on and we have Michael like listen to this guy. It's like, okay, that sounds like convincing enough. But then all of a sudden we have a turnaround of Michael going and watching the news, and this one, I guess, friend of Michael or friend of Dale's is to mention the exact same story word for word. And so Michael's like, oh my god, why is it that all of this is scripted? Why does everybody have the exact same answer? This seems so weird. And so Michael is looking into this, and Colleen is consistently telling Michael, it's like, well, you're on, like, you've driven 24 hours to get back here. Like, you, like, haven't gone on any sleep. Maybe, like, you're going to have a nervous breakdown or something like you did before when you were in the mental hospital. Which, all of a sudden, Wilson is to have a picture of Mike and Jessica's dad together in that one picture, reminding them that, like, oh, Dr. Mike was at that same asylum, and weirdly, Michael was to be rescued, or was to get out of that asylum before it was to burn down, coincidentally. So the group is still thinking that Mike is Jessica Hyde, or what am I thinking? Mike is Mr. Rabbit. What am I saying here? I hope I can speak English. So English? Yes, I hope so. So we go on, and so Mike gets to come and figure out even more things, while Colleen is trying to tell him to go to sleep. And so Michael is basically forced into bed by his wife, and Michael goes and pops out this computer and starts typing away, trying to figure things out, realizing that the flu is coming from these bunnies, because that's how this flu had spread so quickly. It wasn't through the meat, it wasn't through Simpro, it was from some bunny kind of bunny get together, bunny uh, kind of bunny showing, like whatever it's called, where you end up having a bunch of people going and seeing this bunny farm, and them like kind of touching and loving these bunnies. So so weirdly, I guess the whole Simpro thing and the bunny connection was just a coinky dink. But we now have Thomas, who was shoving out all these orders of these bunnies, because all the bunnies are the ones to be the carriers. So I'm like, oh, okay, so it's kind of like when The Cove came out, and like they were saying that certain animals were starting to get it also, and that they were saying that maybe like uh, animals could possibly still be carriers, and so like, hey, watch out, like if you have a pet, like, and if they go outside a lot or whatever, you take them out in the park and you meet people and shake hands and kiss babies. Anyways, so we have Michael figuring all of this stuff out now. He's putting all of the pieces together. And so now that he's figured all of this out, and the New York Times is calling him because his flu has been approved by the FDA, we have Michael who's like, I'm going to get down to the bottom of this, and Colleen smacks him with his own trophy, knocking him out, and she's like, you're not going to get down to the bottom of anything. Like, I'm going to tie you up into a chair, because no, you're not going to freaking, like, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to tell anybody anything. I'm just going to tie you up into a chair and tell you the truth. Tell you the truth, man. I'm not really your lover. I'm your uncle. I'm like, we're gonna have this Scooby Doo reveal where she's gonna take off her mask, and it's gonna be Uncle Phil, the villainous Uncle Phil from, and it'll be like, oh my God, no. Man, am I tired. So it's gonna be the Scooby Doo reveal where she's somebody else the whole entire time. She's gonna be John Cusack, and like Michael's gonna be like, I slept with you, and like, yeah, you did. We went too far here. We went far too far. My apologies. I'm having fun with this, but I'm also tired, so whichever. Pushing on. So now we have the comic book breakdown of Wilson, who are showing certain panels, and they're figuring pieces of this out. And really what they're figuring out is the other Dystopia book was all about Jessica's father, And now in Utopia, this story is to be focused on Jessica. And well, yeah, because I guess Jessica's now father is dead. So like this story has to be much more focused on Jessica now. I guess probably Jessica's dad thought that he was going to die. So like it seems like he was some weird goofy psychic, oddly. So we have in these panels, we go on and we showcase that there were certain kids being put into boxes, and eventually it seemed that Jessica was tortured, or uh, like she was brainwashed. And so Jessica was saying, it's like, well, no, that never happened to me. Like, I was never gas masked. I was never, uh, like, hurt or put in the way of which that this comic book is to mention. And they're like, well, like, what if you didn't know? Like, what if you were just, like, what if you were hypnotized? What if you were amnesiac? What if, like, any number of things could have happened? They could have done anything to you without you even realizing it because they freaking warped your mind somehow. So we end up having it to where it seems that in the comic book panels, it seems that Jessica is going on to find this angeled woman to follow to try to get out of uh, Utopia and to kind of come up with the answers. And so they're like, what does all of this mean? So we go on and we have Arby, who of course is to go on and chuck a rock into this glass door. And so they're like, well, okay, I guess like he wants an audience with us. So we end up having it to where Thomas is now like upset with Arby, and so he like slaps him, and then he wants to go and pick up this rock and like hit Arby with it, but Kevin is telling him no, like put that down. So Arby picks up the rock, and so now Arby is mentioning like, well, hey, like I found Jessica Hyde, I found Utopia, and so because Arby had gone on to be back where he is to, I guess, normally sleep, and he's taking all these raisin boxes, these little raisin boxes, and chucking them, crushing them on the ground. So now Arby is mentioning to Kevin that he has seen Utopia, and so Kevin's like, well, like, what did you see? So we now have Arby asking questions of what his real name is, and so Kevin's like, well, I can't really give you the answer of that because I don't even know. Like, if anything, we never really could remember what your name is, so we just called you RB, which stands like for Raisin Boy. R period B period RB. Like they just called him Raisin Boy, or they just called him uh, whatever is to fit that whole mold of Arby. So they just kept calling him that. So eventually Kevin is just kind of like consoling Arby with him realizing like about Utopia, and knowing so many secrets now that they have created certain people as monsters, and like kind of monsters with human skin kind of. So really we what is left to really cover here? um Oh, before Kevin was to go on and talk to Thomas about the whole, like, they have to come up with the whole life story of Wade, we have Kevin and Thomas talking about how, like, people are tricky, and how certain people either were working out with a program or whichever, and how, like, they might have to start taking people off the table, so to speak, like a chess move kind of thing. So that, like, Lily is not like shutting her mouth, and Dr. Michael is kind of getting more and more suspicious of things, and, like, Dale, of course, was uh, like not being able to cope with what had happened. So they're starting to have to get rid of all these people and get them off the board. We also had the one moment where Michael was watching the interview with Charlotte, noticing that all of a sudden that this house weirdly is to have way more decor than it had once before, for sure. A little rhyming thing there. And so Colleen is just like, well, like, maybe, like, her dad went off to, like, go to a store and buy some decor, and he's like, that's like a whole house worth of decor. Like, there was, like, nothing in this house, and so all of a sudden there is now, like, as if he went to Bed Bath and Beyond and bought the whole store. Like, no, like, this doesn't make sense. Continuing on Michael's path of this doesn't make sense through most of this episode, and having to put the pieces together and try to figure it all out, and further just having more suspicions about things, and just like, I gotta figure this all out. So with that said, I think that covers question mark most of this episode. If there is anything that I possibly didn't cover, because I know there probably will be, because I know there's probably a little sliver of something somewhere that I forgot about. I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should have said that. And immediately once I stop this video, that's normally when something will come up. Like, oh yeah, I forgot about 5 to 8 different things. My bad. Anyways. But, uh, but I think the meat and the potatoes of it is all kind of covered. If anything, there's maybe some, like, Grant stuff where Grant was, like, defending Alice at one point, uh, when she was wanting to leave and go home, but, like, I just cover right then and right there, and that's about it. Like, there's not much to come out of that. So with that said, I think that covers most of this episode. Um, yeah, a filler episode, but, like, I think we're just gonna get a better episode within the next one. So hopefully that is true. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Uh, I'm trying to think. I think I covered everything. The best part of this episode probably was, like, Michael thumbing through Dale's home, realizing that there isn't in this house. That was, like, when I originally saw this, I was like, oh my god, this is, like, the coolest part of this whole show. Just Michael thumbing through this guy's cupboards and refrigerator, and everything's empty. And Michael's starting to figure out, like, that was the best part of this whole show, was just Mike figuring it out. That was the most interesting thing. And so it'll seem that Wilson and both Jessica are to immediately think that Michael is to be the Mr. Rabbit here, and so they're going and wanting to go after him. Their plan is to go and find out where he lives, because they, I guess, find out the address, and they're going after him, wanting to possibly kill him because they think he's Mr. Rabbit, because they don't even know who really Mr. Rabbit is. So with that said, goodbye everybody. Bye everybody.